Hi, in this video on writing better fiction, I'd like to answer the question of Ramworkz, that's Ramworkz, asked the question, what are some qualities I need to add in order to make an interesting villain? All I have in mind is everyone knows the hero, but people enjoy a good villain. Just the way that a theme to a story can really galvanize the impact of that particular story. A theme to your villain can galvanize the impact that villain has. Your villain could, in essence, be an accident waiting to happen, or a blind vengeance. You know, you could think of your villain as, compare your villain to a force of nature, and have that theme of personality inform the way you depict your villain. So this gets back to the idea of simulated reality. Very compelling fiction is a form of simulated reality. So we look at the psychology of your viewer. In real life, what we do is we are trying to figure people out, and especially when there is a threat involved, if we think that we might be dealing with someone who might lie to us or steal from us. And we've evolved to try to figure people out. We are hardwired for this sort of attitude towards viewing other people, and we bring that to our fiction. Simulated reality. You have a villain. You want that villain to become more interesting. That villain should betray some clues as to why they are doing these evil acts. And that will automatically make the mind of the viewer lights up and is engaged, and subconsciously we start trying to find out more about why the villain is the way he or she is. Really compelling villains have been ones that have an attitude of agitation, and you might see someone who's perspiring and acting amped up, and in states like that, people are more compelled to lash out and do behavior that can be seen as the villain type behavior. As an example. And also, a lot of villainous behavior is also very compulsive behavior, and we innately understand compulsive behavior. So a lot of villains have had, a very strong, unusual attachment to something, and that is a clue into their compulsive nature. You, the writer, want to get inside the villain. You want to know the villain's history and exactly the reasons why the villain does each and everything. But you don't want to explain all of that to the viewer. You want to use that inside information to have the villain have attitudes and gestures and things that hint at what you know is going on with the villain. As Sidney Lumet said, one thing to avoid in a film is the rubber ducky moment, and what he meant by that is that it seemed for a while in film, it always got to a point in the movie, usually towards the end, where they had to justify why the villain was the villain. So, when they were a child, someone stole their rubber ducky, and that's why they robbed banks, so on and so forth. And to fully explain the villain actually basically douses the power of the drama at that point. But if you go ahead and take the trouble to figure out all the reasons why your villain is the way they are, then you can use that to bring lots of dramatic power to the way you portray your villain acting. And the way they are acting do not need to give exact clues and reasons why the villain is the way they are, but to give the viewer a feeling of that personality. And you want that personality to simulation of real life. You want that personality to be one that makes the subconscious of your viewer kick in with what it does in real life, which is it automatically becomes the detective. Whether the viewer is consciously aware of it or not, the viewer automatically recognizes nervous habits, things sometimes the villain might go out of his or her way to do a kind act that seems kind of out of place. Just things that make the viewer wonder, and these are the kind of things that can flesh out the villain in a way that makes the villain a most interesting character. And the fun part about creating an interesting villain is that all of the harmful sides of the human personality can be explored through the villain. Every human watching a film or reading a book is just as interested in the harmful side of human nature as they are in the beneficial side. So as an artist, it can become an exploration of psychology for you and the viewer. If you want to encourage me to create more of these, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. So most of the information we get about other people are clues, and we are never completely certain all that they mean, but get a feeling for what they mean. We have a whole tradition of psychology and sciences and astrology and different ways of trying to understand human nature, and we still haven't figured it out. Human nature is still shrouded in mystery. At no point can we say with absolute definite understanding why a particular serial killer did what they did. So have an appreciation for that mystery, the mystery of the human personality. And what is helpful is have ready your explanation why your villain does the things he or she does. Don't put it in the story, but if anyone says, if anyone at one point asks you, why are they doing this, you can pull out this piece of paper and say, these are the reasons I think why. And even I, the writer, am not completely sure. And if you do that kind of work, it will inform your depiction of that character, and you'll get a feel for that personality, and you'll find yourself being creative with things they say and things they do that don't seem to have to do directly with their villainy, but it does. It comes out of a feel for that personality. So they could do something, if you have a really strong feel for that personality, they could do something as little as, pick up a toothpick and throw it on the floor. And that will convey to the reader, the depth of their villainy. Because ultimately she's innocent, she sends gifts to the families of those she killed out of guilt. But instead of it making it better, it becomes a frightening thing for those families. So, I'm just trying to think creatively about, remember that you want the villain to be a real human. And that can increase this sense of villainy, and the viewer can enjoy the frightening aspect of that. You know, as a good exercise, just write down like 3 of your favorite villains, and and just write down some of the reasons you really like those villains. One of my favorite villains is La Llorona, which is a story out of Mexico. And the way it goes is that when she was still a human, she had an unwanted pregnancy, and so she went to drown her baby in the river. And then when she died, because she had drowned her baby, they wouldn't let her into heaven, and then the devil wouldn't let her into hell unless she brought a baby with her. So she walks around crying at night looking for runaways, so that she can have a child to take with her to make it into hell. And so this is you know, a living folk tale, and I heard it when I was a kid, and it was truly frightening. And so that's one of my favorite villains, and one of the reasons I like that villain so much is the visual impact, you know, of her walking around at night crying. So, you know, just imagine, you know, you think of crying as something, you know, there's a contradiction there where, you know, she deserves sympathy, but actually her crying is a sign that she's going to drag you to hell. So that's an example. That's one of my favorite villains. I don't have time to answer all of the wonderful comments I get, but if you ask a question, I really try to answer those comments. And the reason I make these videos is that I'm working on an animation project of episodes that tells a story I've been working on, and it's at solomation.com. And if one of these videos compels you to go and see that, I will have achieved my goal here. And I hope your writing and art goes well, and have a great day.